Hey there, welcome to the Customer Academy Playbook, a show where we help B2B brands in SaaS and beyond build online training programs that their customers will love. I'm your host, Matt Tidwell, founder and CEO of ThinkThru. In today's episode, we are exploring the topic of monetization, which might be a big area of focus for you this year in 2023. And we are going to look at the mental shifts that have to occur as you start monetizing or look at monetizing your customer education program. We're also going to share a simple 4-step test that you can use to determine if free is really a driving factor in your customer education program's success. So without further ado, let's get into it. Now, there are many factors that affect a go-to-market strategy when launching a course or a customer education program or kind of building something from scratch like this. But one thing is for certain, and that is pricing is a polarizing conversation in every organization when it comes to customer education. And I will always kind of argue, and I'll explain in this episode where my point of view comes from, and we'll look at some data around it and things like that. But at the end of the day, regardless of how you consider monetization, if you can't tie your customer education program to revenue in some meaningful way, your training program and budget will always be at risk. And so in this episode, we're going to look at that free versus paid conversation, which is probably happening everywhere in SaaS training. And we're going to just look at, the challenges of free, the perceived value, and how that affects your program. We're going to look at some upsides of monetization. And then really at the end of the day, the conversation should be about the goals that your customer education program's moving forward, right? We all have different goals. No two organizations are using training for the same reasons. And so really this isn't a prescriptive, you must go do this after this episode, but I am going to give you some actionable steps to start to test and see if this is something that might be worth implementing this quarter or this year. So I guess first up though, we should talk about the challenge of free, right? Because for those of us in customer success, giving away things that promote our customer success with our product or with our solutions or with our services seems like a no-brainer, right? So we want our customers to stay with us. We want to be successful. And often as a team, we're measured on retention and all sorts of other things, right? So why would we not want to give things away that help us increase those things? As a result, I think, with that mindset, leaders of customer success often have a vested interest in removing anything that could be considered a barrier that would prevent someone from going deeper with our product, and really most importantly, getting results with our product. That's our number one metric that we care about, is can our customers get the result they need? And so really, when I think about the pricing conversation, it's not should we monetize or should we not monetize? It's really, friction or a challenge of, are we putting barriers in place that make it more difficult for our customers to get results with our product? And that is a really good question. And I think that is where how we define customer education really matters. How we say and frame the conversation and the team and the goals of customer education really matters, because I do think from a customer success perspective, if you think about the lion's share of product content, think, tutorials, onboarding, click this sort of content, how to, help documentation, all of that, I think those arguably oftentimes should be free, right? But at the same time, I like to challenge the idea that product content and training content are not always the same thing. And that if we look at customer education as a skills-based program or skills-based content stream, now we've reframed customer education from just a content tutorial engine into delivering new skills, bringing expert advice, opinions, and information into the conversation, delivering proven processes and workflows, and really having customized support, if we think about it that way. And I think in almost every industry, working with an expert or getting a proven process or having customized support or a tailored program costs something, right? And usually it's financial, it's money, but it could also be time, or it's energy, or it's some other resource. But having that customized expert process approach costs something. And so I think that's where that whole idea, or that label of education as a service, really starts to kind of take place, right? So we're moving away from just click here onboard videos into, imparting new skills, new ways of thinking, or delivering workflows that solve very specific problems for specific groups of people. And I do think that that's worth something. And so that's where really my stance on, identifying value and applying value to customer education is rooted, is, going far beyond the click here content. And so I think that as we develop our customer education programs, and as we start to package expertise in IP and proven processes and all those things, as we start to do those things, we should be thinking about these as valuable assets and presenting them that way, that help our customers achieve results faster. And so really, as we do this, it starts to increase our perceived value, not only within our organization, but also customer-facing perceived value. So, if you think about it, actually, if we flip the conversation, if we create incredibly high-quality programs and we don't charge them, there is a world where it's actually more difficult for those programs to become successful. And that's just kind of really odd to think about. But if we have high-quality products and we're not applying a value to them in the market, it becomes more difficult for those high-quality programs to become successful. And really, I think that's because they can be perceived as lower value, right? And there's research from Vanderbilt University I actually just found in the Journal of Consumer Research, actually. And, it talks about the fact of lowering prices can actually backfire for retailers and for commerce and things like that, because low prices trigger a signal of one of two things. It's either really low quality or it's a really good deal. And so, our consumers have that competing belief at the same time. They believe that something low price could be a good value, but there's also some secondary stream this is low quality or cheap product. And so they have those competing, and they're not equally weighted. It depends on probably state of mind of the person at the time they see that offer, that product. But giving it away for free, it must just be put together, quickly or cheaply, must be low quality. However, if we apply a label that is more appropriate to the amount of effort and the result that they can achieve, then that is, that's going to increase our perception in the market. I've heard several pricing folks. I'm not a pricing expert at all, so don't claim to be, but there are several folks that, if you think about it, if someone were to actually achieve the results that you are promising, if they're actually going to undergo the transformation that your program delivers, what would that be worth to them, right? And if we can price our products at, 1/10 or or 20%, 10%, 20% of what that transformation is actually worth, it will definitely be a good deal. It doesn't have to be free to be of amazing value. And so, in addition to that perceived market value, I also think there's a lower incentive to complete free, because I really, I don't have anything at stake to lose, right? There hasn't been an exchange of value really when something's free. And then if you kind of compound that with it's free and unlimited access, you've actually created two obstacles for you in growing that program, in that I had very easy, kind of entry. There wasn't any exchange really for me to get access to it, and I have access to it forever. So I'm not going to lose it. So there's really no motivation for me other than maybe I'm bored or I have, just an extreme interest in a topic to stay focused and pay attention to the thing that you're trying to help me learn, right? And so often working with SaaS organizations specifically, and others, but especially in SaaS, that idea of product training versus skills training, kind of going back and forth in that conversation, it's like, we want to launch an industry recognized certification. Okay, brilliant. There's a lot of market value for that. There's a lot of strategic reasons why you'd want to do that. 100% agree. And then but it will be free. There's always that secondary thing there. And, again, everyone has a different goal. Maybe enrollment is the most important thing. Maybe having the most certified people is the most important thing. But I would argue the flip side of that, just to play both sides. Every organization is going to make this decision differently for their goals, but I would argue that when you make it so easy to achieve and so attainable, and there really is no gap, or there's nothing that I have to cross or transform into to achieve the results, there's no real differentiation, there's no real compelling experience, and the certification doesn't have as much weight really as if there was a true transformation that took place, or there was a chasm that I had to cross in order to attain that thing. And that could be financial, or it could be, the amount of time I have to invest in something, or it could be any number of things. But having free, unlimited, really meaningful, certifications or industry validation is very, very difficult to achieve. And so, I was in a meeting, and one of the folks said, well, yeah, but if this is our own private branded YouTube channel, they were talking about content and delivery in their LMS. And I agree, it was very YouTube-like, and it looked really sharp. But, if everything's free and it's just a YouTube channel, what's really compelling about enrolling right away and getting started and making sure you consume all the things to quote unquote be trained? There's really not. There's a lot of obstacles there if we start to frame our customer education, our delivery that way. So those are some of the challenges, right? Perceived value for education as a service. But, there's so many upsides, though. If we just explore, we don't have to commit to it, but if we just explore monetization, I think there's a lot of upsides, right? Because you're listening to this, there's the reality that if something isn't driving revenue in the business or in the organization, the reality is it's likely to go away. And so I think monetization supports many of our core values as customer education folks in our programs. And so first, it supports longevity, right? Customer education is a long-term play. Having folks successful with our product takes time. And a lot of the indicators that we look at are usually lagging indicators of success. And we're looking at renewals, and we're looking at, increased license usage, and we're looking at customers' ROI of using the product. So those are not front-end things that have to happen. That's after experience is gained and practices are implemented and results are achieved, you can start to see those things. So you need longevity. And if you can support your own resources at the program level, you can move from a cost center into a strategic asset. And, you want to be a strategic asset that's deployed to grow revenue. That's going to be the ultimate position for you to be as a customer education person. So longevity. The other thing it does is it promotes or provides really scalability. And I think that as the world is getting a little bit more complex, when you have product and success and training, and ultimately there's a lot of stakeholders involved and there's a lot of resources at play, I would just say that the more complex and critical training becomes to your product and to your success function, the more resources it's going to take. You are going to need investment and resources to innovate that function. And so to go to leadership, to ask for those investments to innovate, to ask for those investments to scale and repurpose and remix and meet customers in the ways that they need to be met to learn, you are going to have a much easier time having a forecasted revenue growth. Here's what will happen, and here's how we'll grow, and here's how we'll monetize, and here's how we'll scale a conversation versus here's how much more this is going to cost. The other thing it's going to give you the ability to do is it's going to give you the ability to market and promote. When I was within another larger organization before launching ThinkThru years ago, marketing resources were incredibly valuable. We only had so many marketing folks, and to get them to commit to a particular campaign or to get on their roadmap for the course launch or whatever those things were, that was a pretty special moment. So, we only had so much marketing resources. And at the end of the day, if you're giving your products away for free, that's another challenging conversation to have sometimes with marketing. I mean, we always need things to give away. We always need offers. We always need, funnel building activities, right? But if you are going to run ads and you're going to justify promotion, and you're going to justify all the email communications and the staff to handle that and all those different things, Having no revenue behind it makes that even harder. Monetization does give you that runway to market and promote. Fourth, you also, again, going back to perceived market value, if you have a program that's well developed, you have qualifications for that program, there's some financial barrier to entry. You have a gap that's got to be crossed in order for that person to achieve results with you. And so, real learning and real skill acquisition takes work. It's not a free thing that just happened that we just got to wake up one day and have a skill. And so I think emphasizing that gap in some way helps increase the satisfaction level of when I actually complete the program, when I actually, succeed. I have more of a sense of accomplishment versus, I consumed some more content. I took a 5-question quiz and now I'm certified, right? And then finally, just the last upside for this conversation around monetization is it helps build diversification in revenue, right? Having customer education programs that are a lot more like products gives you the ability to diversify streams. And, in today's economy, I think more and more folks are looking for ways to diversify the revenue streams, and productizing your IP gives you so many opportunities really to license, to white label, to resell, to on-demand, to e-commerce, to all sorts of things or financial options. All right, so there's some upsides again, but regardless of if you're all in on free, there is, again, absolutely nothing wrong with we're all in on free training. But if you are exploring building a revenue generating customer education program, it is worth both sides, both teams, doing a test for free versus paid. And really, before you plant the flag and say we are monetizing or we're not, I argue that it's a both and not an either or. There's situations where you're not going to want to monetize and situations where you are. But I do think it's worth testing. And actually on LinkedIn, I shared a post this week outlining a really simple test, right, that you could run in a week or whenever it makes sense for you to run, just to see what pricing does to the overall spirit of your program. And so here's the simple test, right, which is first go into your learning management system or your content distribution and management system and get some stats, get some numbers. Look at the current consumption of your programs and products, and also look at the completion of your programs and products. I would also start to look at, how long people have access, what the enrollment period's like, things like that, or anything else, any other motivating factor that helps increase completion, right? So if you have free programs that expire in 30 days or 60 or 90 days, factor that in, right? And so just kind of get a sense of what that free catalog looks like. Second, identify how that content is actually getting promoted or shared or encouraged to others and to your customers, right? So if you do have free programs and you're lucky enough to have marketing channels around that, factor those pieces into this puzzle. Now, in order to run the test, here's what I would do. I would take a similar version of that product and I might even charge for an updated version of the product or a section of the product or something like that training product. And I would experiment at a few different price points, a small, medium, large. Let's just frame it very simply. Small, medium, large. You could even do just one price. The fewer variables, the better. So just pick a price, launch it. You can kind of play with that. Again, I would follow the exact same launch and promo that you currently have for your free catalog. Make sure that all the factors are the same. And then after a period of time, I would come back and I would measure the consumption and the completion of that paid offering, right? And then it really comes down to your goals. If you had a free program and you had 10,000 people enroll in your free program, you make some changes to the curriculum, you update a few things, you launch it as a paid offer, and you have 1,000 folks that enroll in the paid offer. It may not matter. If it actually might be better for the goal that you are driving forward as an organization to have the 10,000 people enrolled, and you don't necessarily worry about if they complete, right? That could be a great thing. But on the flip side, your organization might, prefer, or the goal might actually require or be better fulfilled if you had 1,000 or 2,000 people enrolled in the offering, but they actually complete 100% of the program, and they actually got the transformation that you're promising. And I think that's where, coming back to how you're positioning your customer education, the design of your customer education, Is it click here tutorial info product, or is it a transformation that's occurring throughout the course of your curriculum? And info products, you might want lots of enrollment. Transformations, you might prefer committed completions, right? So just seeing how those two things happen, right? And so, I have clients or have had clients in the past say, well, we don't charge because we'll have less enrollment. Or our competitors give away free training. That's a big one. Most people have that problem. And I completely understand, right? Your competitors are giving away free training. Or, yes, the free thing got a lot more click here, enroll nows, but nobody got past lesson 1, right? And so, again, back to the goal. I think some of these challenges are simply just optics, right? When I look at data and I don't really understand, I'm like, these numbers are higher than those numbers. And some of them might be instructional design. Maybe you have a really well thought out execution strategy on the launch and the goal that you're moving forward, and people don't continue on. Maybe there's a design or an audience targeting problem, or there's some instructional flow or some user experience. Like there's all sorts of stuff, right? And then some of these problems are simply just resource problems. Like, hey, we would love to launch a more flagship curriculum, but we just don't have resources to help us do that. So there's tons of reasons why. So this isn't judgmental or prescriptive or any of that. I'm just kind of going through the thought process of testing. As you look at it, though, I would encourage everybody in the training world, especially if you're in the free training world, to imagine how you might elevate just one of your programs, one of your products, into a paid offering. And just test the waters, right? So, go through that process. Identify the current consumption completion of your free content and include all the factors, enrollment duration, anything else. And then look at the promotion strategy for that free content. Now pivot, go back in the office, retool, upgrade a little bit, and relaunch a paid offering of that, and then follow those same metrics. All right, so in this episode, we have talked about, everything. Not everything, but we've talked about quite a bit related to monetizing your training. Not only challenges of free and what that looks like from a market perception and an optics point of view, but also functionally what it allows you to do. Free programs are harder to sustain. They're harder to innovate. They're harder to fund. But I do think education as a service is really the framework that we are operating in as customer education professionals. And I think that there are so many upsides if we can align to our market, serve our customers best as possible, and then we can look for smart, strategic ways to monetize that effort. I think there's just a world of good, and I really do think customer education is one of the most powerful vehicles to move a brand forward and move a product growth forward. Anyway, I hope that this episode has provided you value. I hope that there's been some context that's helpful or some strategy that helps you approach the pricing conversation during your current quarter launch, during all the programs you're working on. I encourage everyone to consider testing the waters on paid programming this quarter. All right, that's all I have for this episode. Again, Matt here with ThinkThru. Thanks so much for listening to this episode. If you want any more information, there are notes in the show notes. There are things in the description, and you can visit us at ThinkThru.co. Again, that's ThinkThru.co, and we're here to help brands build training customers love. Take care. See ya.